Hello everyone, welcome to week 3 of our course and happy Labor Day, or at least it's Labor Day 2015 as I'm recording this on Monday morning. Kind of a little rainy, drizzly type of day here in Kansas City. But welcome to week 3. I'm going to talk just a little bit about week 2 and then get you guys started on week 3. And I'll also tell you guys up front that one of my main things I'm going to do today is get caught up on grading so that you guys have grades for all the recent activities you guys have been working on. I've been looking at them, they look great. I just don't have them in the grade book, so I'll go ahead and formalize those today and hopefully get caught up on all of that as far as grades go. So just a couple things about last week's topic of digital citizenship, and I can't remember who in the message boards or the blog talked about it last week, but I really liked the concept of, instead of using maybe the term digital footprint, using the term digital tattoo. That it's going to be a little bit more permanent. You know, kids think of footprints as maybe kind of going away a little bit, but the tattoo, unless you get, really expensive surgery or something, is basically permanent. And there's a really good example this past week, just kind of in my own circles of digital citizenship and kind of about what you put online and how it affects your life. I'm originally from Nebraska. I'm a big Nebraska football fan, and they recently had an opening for the PA announcer, the person that at Nebraska games is the one that does all the announcements in the stadium. It's a fairly, pretty nice gig for someone that's involved in Nebraska football and stuff. And so they had an opening, and they hired somebody last week, and it was kind of one of those things where, oh my gosh, it's my dream job. I can't believe, that I get to do this. I went to games as a kid, and, now I'm going to be the PA announcer at Memorial Stadium with 90,000 people in the stands. And then a couple of days later, it was revealed that he had been removed from that position just days after getting the position, and they were going to hire somebody else. And when the story came out, it came out that last year when Nebraska released their football coach, or fired their football coach, he had made some kind of derogatory statements towards the chancellor at the University of Nebraska on his Facebook page. And it was just essentially one post that happened back in November of 2014. But after they had hired him, and I don't know why they didn't check this out before, but after they hired him, somehow it came to light that he had made a statement that really wasn't in the best light of the university, and they decided to terminate him just days after he got his dream job. So very real circumstance of, what you put on your Facebook page, what you put on Twitter. It's a great resource, but just make sure that you realize that anything you say could come back and be used by a potential employer or, anybody else in the future as well. A lot of people talked about some of the ways that they do digital citizenship in their own districts. I can share just a little bit of how we do that here. We do have one day at the beginning of the year as we go through a lot of different technology aspects for our kids, because we're one-to-one. We kind of spend we devote about 15 minutes of each period, and we kind of have a lesson plan that we do. And 2 of those are digital citizenship lessons. And what students have to do following participating in one of those, they have to go on and they have to basically check a box when they log in that says that they participated in that digital citizenship activity. So we have some things that are planned basically for students every year, and we have a couple of lessons that we use, and they go through those. And that's how we kind of try and hit everybody. I know it's one of those things where it should be taught by everybody, but it's almost kind of so universal that sometimes it just doesn't get mentioned much because everybody just assumes everybody else is talking about it. But I think that the more that we talk about it in different disciplines, probably the more that students will kind of latch on to that and why it's important. So some great comments there on week 2. We'll go through your blogs and your lesson plans and stuff, but enjoyed seeing kind of all the different perspectives of how people are teaching digital citizenship in their own districts. All right, so let's take a little bit of time and talk about week 3. So a lot of times we talk about technology in education, we talk about it's really not about the device, it's about the tool, and it's about the skill. But the topic for this particular week is the device itself. So we're going to talk about a variety of different things that people can use in their classrooms. And I know from looking at what you guys talked about in the first week, some of you have one-to-one, some of you are approaching one-to-one, some of you have carts, some of you have iPads, Chromebooks, Apple computers. you have a variety of stuff. And so this is going to be just kind of a week to kind of look at the different options. And maybe you use one device, maybe you'll find out a little bit more about a different device this week. In our particular school district here in Liberty, we have, I think we're at about 11,000 students now, and this fall we're one-to-one K through 12. So every student in our district has a device that they have that's their own. So we go kindergarten through, I believe it's kindergarten through third grade. No, I'm sorry, kindergarten through, I think kindergarten through third grade is iPad minis. And then from there you switch to Chromebooks. So I believe I don't remember if it's third or fourth, but third or fourth all the way through seventh grade are Chromebooks. And then every student from eighth grade through seniors in high school have a MacBook Air. So we have a variety of devices, and in my particular building, I teach in a building that is 6, 7, and 8. So it's kind of interesting because our 6th and 7th graders have Chromebooks, and then our 8th graders have MacBook Airs. And some of the rationale behind that was we wanted to give 8th graders the device that they would have once they got into high school to eliminate one more kind of thing for them to get used to once they get to the high school environment. We also kind of were able to make some decisions on how we could afford that at the 8th grade level. If we could, I think that the choice would probably be to give every student that has some kind of laptop type of device a MacBook Air, because it's a great device. They've been very durable. They're built well. They've got a lot of different options you can have on them. But it's just a matter of cost. If cost wasn't a concern with cars, we'd probably all be driving Escalades and BMWs and stuff like that. But the reality is that we probably can't all afford that type of vehicle. And so we decided to go with 8th graders with MacBook Airs. I teach primarily 8th graders. I do have some interaction with 6th and 7th graders during the day, but for the most part, my students have MacBook Airs. I will tell you that I'm a very big Google fanboy. My wife, I bought her a Chromebook when they first came out back in, I believe it was like November of 2012 or so. And the Chromebook that I gave her in 2012, she still uses today on a regular basis. So we have Chromebooks in our house, both as what my wife uses as a personal device, and then also I have a 6th grade daughter, and so she brings a Chromebook home, and then we have a 2nd grade daughter, and so they just got to bring home their iPad minis for the first time last week. So we have a variety of devices. We also have a Nexus 7 tablet at home. We've got a Kindle Fire at home. We're kind of a geeky family, so over the years we've kind of accumulated different things. But this week we'll be looking at those devices and what they can do, some advantages to each one. Obviously with the whole like Chromebook versus MacBook Air discussion, cost is going to be a major issue. But there's a lot of things you can do on any device. For example, if you use like a Google Apps for Education, you can use those applications on virtually any of those machines. And it's really not, a lot of people think it's like Google versus Apple, but in reality, a lot of people at Google use Macintoshes. I mean, when I've been to Google several times, a vast majority of the people that are using machines are using MacBook Airs and stuff. So it's not really a Google plus or a Google versus Apple conundrum. There's a little bit with browsers and stuff kind of maybe competing, but for the most part, when you have a device, it's about what can that device do, what are the options, what are the limitations, those types of things. So kind of rambling on a little bit here, but go ahead and take a look obviously at the devotional. We have a short devotional for this week, and the objective and assignment is essentially what I've been talking about, looking at different devices. Let's go ahead and open up the readings and resources, and I'll kind of talk about those a little bit here. All right, so I do have a short video here. It was recorded in 2009, so keep that in mind. But it just kind of talks a little bit about, the digital generation and kind of how students growing up today, you just have kind of a different idea about how they're using devices and things. So that's a short video. There's an infographic on digital learning now, which is interesting. I really like infographics as they kind of display things in a unique way to kind of be able to absorb them. So that's a really good one. The third resource on the top here is a white paper, and it was written by people that are trying to convince you to use Intel, people trying to convince you to use computers in the classroom and to buy the devices. So just keep that in mind. But they do have some good information about really why a certain device might be best for a specific learning environment. And then the last tool up here is a list of 100 tools for learning. This is the 214 list. They actually have voting going on, I think, during September, and then they'll publish a new one later this fall. But this list is kind of interesting. It's the top 100 tools. The number one tool listed is Twitter for 2014, and then they have a link for all of those. So this can become very time consuming. It's kind of like going into the rabbit hole. You start opening up links and you come out 2 hours later and you're like, wow, what have I done for the last 2 hours? So you don't have to look at all of these. It's just kind of interesting to see a variety of stuff. Maybe you click on one that you maybe heard of but haven't really investigated. But just kind of cruise around and kind of look at what people are saying they're really using as tools in the classroom environment today. And then for the resources, I've got a bunch of different things here for you to look at. Again, you don't have to look at every single one of these, but they're here for you to kind of look at. You can. I would like you to choose 2 of them for your blog. Okay, so 2 of them. But there's a variety of stuff here. There's some stuff on Chromebooks versus laptops. I'm not a huge fan of really either of these. I guess I don't like when they kind of combat the two. I think that there's definitely advantages to either one. This top one I think is very pro Windows and doesn't really represent what Chromebooks can do. This one is a little bit more, maybe a little more balanced, and it talks about a MacBook Air comparison. But again, you really have to think about what you want your students to be able to do, and to be able to give them a device at roughly $200 per device with the Chromebook. That has really changed the environment in our school. We wouldn't be able to swing it if we tried to buy MacBook Airs for everybody, but Chromebooks have been a great fit. They've been very durable for us. So I don't know, you can kind of take both of those with a little bit of a grain of salt. We have some stuff about tablets and iPads, a little bit about some of the things that Google's doing. Google Play doesn't really exist anymore as kind of like a marketplace, but they do have some great resources there for Google Apps for education. Classroom response systems. Some of you may have used clickers in the past, or maybe you have clickers. Some of the stuff that I've used in my own classroom, instead of clickers, we've done some stuff with Poll Everywhere, which allows you to have students get out a phone and they can go ahead and vote for things just like they would with a clicker. They can vote on it that way. I'm in a one-to-one environment right now, so I don't use clickers, but I do stuff like Kahoot, for example, and students can respond and answer questions and kind of play a game and stuff with quizzes and things. They do that right on their computer. So some of these might be a little bit obsolete if you have a one-to-one environment. Some things on smart boards. Cell phones in the classroom, that could be an entire week on its own about, do you allow them, do you not allow them? I allow them in my classroom. In the real world, students are going to be able to use cell phones a lot of times to access information. So they definitely know that there's times when Mr. Langhorst says that he does not want cell phones out, and then there's times when it's acceptable. So I think you have to kind of find your own kind of happy balance there as a teacher. And also, obviously, grade level depends on what you want to do with grade level type appropriateness and stuff like that too. And then a couple cool things with digital pens and some graphic tablets, especially if you're an art teacher, some neat things about using some graphic tablets. So those are the resources for this week. There's a lot there. So again, just kind of choose a little bit, pick some things that interest you, but please don't feel like you have to watch or you have to look at every one of those links. Just find 2 that you want to be able to blog about. And then our assignment for a lesson plan this week is to create an assignment that is going to address a way that you would use a device. So you're going to provide a detailed explanation before class, preparation during class. So really, how would you use a device to enhance your classroom teaching. And then don't forget to include 3 or more accommodations or extensions. And if you want to go ahead on that template and just even label them 1, 2, 3, that makes it a lot easier to kind of to pull those out, but make sure that you're including those. But again, this one is mostly about how you're going to use a device. So it's a lot broader than maybe picking one particular thing and kind of focusing on it. But that's a little bit about the lesson for today, for this week. And then your assignment, of course, blogging about digital learning. Pick out 2 of those technologies from any of the links you guys saw. I did have a question last week, and I answered it on the forum, so hopefully everybody got it. Go ahead and comment on the person's blog. So you don't have to do it in that list of, everybody linking their blogs and stuff. Actually go to the person's blog and go ahead and comment on it. And then just make sure that you have your settings on your own blog set so that people can post comments, because you can set it up so that there's essentially no way to comment. And there's sometimes a need for that when you're a teacher setting up a blog. But for this, we'd like you to open it up. You can moderate it, which I always recommend. So I don't think you're probably going to have a lot of people jumping on and saying inappropriate stuff in this class environment. But one reason why I strongly urge you to have moderation on your comments is because sometimes you might get spam on your blog as well. So on my Speaking of History blog that I've had up for a while, sometimes I'll write an article about something. This happens a lot. I'll write an article about some kind of tip for writing, or some kind of thing attached to curriculum, and then I'll get people that spam it and say, hey, if you want somebody to write your research paper for you, use this link. And then they'll have like a link to a paper mill type thing where people will write papers for you and stuff like that. And so obviously I don't want that comment on my blog. So I moderate it so it comes to me first. Everything comes to me first as a comment. And then I can say, yes, I want to publish that, or no, I don't. So just another thing that you might want to do on your blog as far as settings is make sure that you are moderating the comments, and then you get to decide what gets put on and what does not get put on your particular blog. So that's the plan for this week. I know that we got Labor Day today, so some of you may be kind of taking today off and everything. That's fine. If not, jump in today and get started. But things have looked really good. I've enjoyed reading your comments and seeing the interaction on the blogs. And like I said, I'll go ahead today and spend some time and make sure that everything's caught up so that you guys know exactly where you're at as far as grades. All right, as always, if you guys have any questions, let me know. And unless you do, I will see you in class. Thanks.